So good morning, thanks for joining me. We've got a nice select few here, so that's brilliant. Hopefully it will give you more confidence to ask questions at the end. I'm going to work through my presentation, and then, like I say, there'll be opportunities for questions at the end. I have just muted you all just so there's no background noise, but I do find it difficult not having the interaction and talking at a screen, so you'll have to bear with me. So I don't need to tell any of you, you'll have heard me say this last year if you came to my workshop, and often when I do my show rounds, how important reading is for the children. It is the most important skill that we teach your children because it opens up the doors for all areas of the curriculum, and it's that stepping stone into all of their learning. And it's really important to us that we get that right from the start, and we're building those building blocks so your child can have future success, but also start to develop a love for reading. So there's two areas that I'm going to talk about. So I'll talk about phonics because that's one of our toolkits for reading, and something that we do when the children first start school, and it continues throughout their school journey at Westcott, and sometimes beyond if they need it. And then I'll talk a bit more specifically about reading. And then next week, hopefully, if you're coming for our lessons, you'll be able to see some of the things that I've talked about in practice. So with phonics, we follow the Little Wandle Letters and Sounds scheme, and it's an accredited scheme by the DFE, and we really like it. We've used it now for 3 or 4 years. We find the resources, the lesson progression really helps the children to pick up and be able to read words really quickly. So we're really happy with it. We love the books that are attached to it, and we really feel like it helps the children. They have a fantastic website that they're always updating. There's definitely more things on there for parents and free access than there ever was. So it is a good place to go to if you ever want to know more, or you're not quite sure about something. That's a really good resource, and it's linked from our website as well, and some of the information is on our website too. So how is phonics taught in school? So you'll know that your children have been having phonics daily because you're now experts in the school because your children have been here a year. So it is taught daily. It continues to be taught daily in year 1 and then into year 2. And it's a short, sharp lesson, slightly more than when they first started in foundation stage, but never more than 20-25 minutes. In year 2, the focus will become more on spellings, because the children will have completed the phonics programme, hopefully. If not, we carry on with it. But that's the main focus is on spellings. That's not to say that we don't do it in year 1 or even in foundation stage, but it becomes more of a focus. And I'll come on to that a bit later when I talk about reading and spelling. So the children are taught in their whole year group for phonics all together. And any children that we find aren't maybe just that day they found that sound a bit tricky, or we feel like they need a little bit of extra practice, we do keep up sessions that the support staff provide in the afternoons, and they might do that once, they might do it every day for a week, or they might do it every day. It really varies, and it's really personalised to the children, and that's not and it's always not to say they're struggling, it's just that they need that extra practice and repeating the knowledge just to embed it in their long-term memory, and then so they can apply it to their reading. Our reading is completely linked to our daily phonics sessions, and then links are made across the curriculum across the day, linking back to phonics. So again, that's how we help to make that learning stick. So that's how it's taught. Now, it's really important, and you'll have heard me share about terminology last year if you came to my workshop. I sort of build on it this year. The vocabulary and the terminology is really important, that we all use the same definitions, and you'll hear your children use these words and you might think, oh my goodness, what does that mean? So hopefully this will help you and you can refer back to it. The phoneme is the smallest unit of sound in a word, and it's what you can hear. So when we say the word cat, there are 3 phonemes, cat. So that's the phoneme, and the grapheme is what you can see. So that's the letter representing that phoneme. So I always think of it's what you can hear, what you can see. So that's a phoneme and grapheme. A digraph is two letters that make one sound, and you get consonant digraphs. There's some examples on my slide, and you get vowel digraphs as well. So again, there's some examples there, and the children will know the terminology digraph definitely by now, because they will have learnt some in reception. And then we have trigraphs, which are three letters which make one sound, and there's not very many, but there is a quadgraph as well, but it's not as common, so we don't often use that one. Then we have split vowel digraphs, where you can see some examples there. For example, in the word make, so it's the vowel digraph split with a consonant. So we teach the children about split digraphs. They're actually quite important. And when I talk about the phonics screening check, they often split digraph words, but the children, I do the phonics screening check with them, and they always tell me that's a split digraph. They're very good at knowing them. Then we have adjacent consonants. So these are two consonants together. Now they are separate sounds. So in the word step, that is still 4 different phonemes, but we like chunk them together to help the children with their reading. And sometimes it is quite tricky to hear the adjacent consonants, but it's what was called phase 4 when we used to teach by phases. But we do teach them these sounds, and we teach them that it is 2 sounds, sometimes 3. They are separate sounds, but we chunk them together to help us with our reading. And then we have tricky words, and I'll come on to tricky words in a bit as well. But we teach, these are the words that aren't, they're very common in our language, but they have unusual spellings and they're tricky, as in the title. So we have to teach them as a whole, lots of repetition and practice, and the children just learn them. There's often clues, like in said, they'll know the initial sound and they can hear the final sound, but obviously they'll be familiar with the AI making an A sound, but in said it makes an E sound. So we teach them all those bits that are tricky about the word, so they really understand them. And again, tricky words go throughout reception, year 1 and into year 2. So we have a program of progression that we work through. So your children will have learnt the basic code in foundation stage, and now the year 1 focus, it's called phase 5, and it's all about growing the code. So you can see this progression document, you can see exactly what they're doing. It's on our website and on the little Wandle page, and when I share this PowerPoint, you'll have the links as well, so you can see exactly what we're working through. So as I said, in year 1 we're really focusing on the phase 5 sound, and we're growing the code. So they're starting to learn that, yes, they've learned AI makes A, but actually there's other ways of making A, and there's always a trick in our English language, just to make it even more tricky for the children. But there's a really great video on the little Wandle page, and again it's linked here, about how you can say those phase 5 sounds if you're not sure. And there's the chart as well, so you can see how we're building up that code. So they have a really good knowledge of all these different, the most common ways to help with their reading and their spelling. We teach them the most common way first, and then the alternative ways. So like I say, we're teaching phase 5. I've mentioned that. I've shared, that's got the video on it, so I won't go into any more detail about that. And then we introduce the strategies that children need to become fluent readers, and this becomes part of our phonics sessions. So to be able to blend independently, blend in their heads with increasing fluency and confidence. And reading, when they get more able with their reading, is about fluency. So it's trying to get them to not read like a robot, because when they do that, they then really struggle with the understanding. And as your child moves through year 1 into year 2, we're really starting to develop their understanding of what they're reading, being able to answer questions, being able to retrieve information, being able to predict what's going to happen next, all those sorts of skills that will eventually lead into when they do their year 6 SATs. So I mentioned tricky words again. I won't share this video because I've got quite a few slides, but it's on here just so you've got a link to it. But there's a nice little video where she explains about how we treat what are tricky words and how we teach them. So I think that's really useful. It's available on the website as well if you don't want to go via this. And like I say, they're ones with unusual spellings, and they're taught in a very in an order, just like everything else, in a set order, and it builds up from the most common gradually to the less common ones, but the ones that are nevertheless tricky for the children. And you can see on our progression document, you'll see exactly what those phase 5 tricky words are, if you're interested. And then I mentioned about how we make learning sticky. Well, it's that daily practice. It's the teachers really knowing the children. It's revisiting it in their reading practice sessions, which I'll come on to, throughout the curriculum. It's making sure the sessions are fun, engaging, that there's lots of different, so sometimes they're looking at flashcards, sometimes they're writing on a whiteboard, so it's really varying up the activities, and just that continual repetition and practice of the sounds. And when your child finishes year 1, when they go into year 2, the first half term is all about revisiting the knowledge for year 1, so we're always revisiting prior learning, and that works through the week as well. So we might teach a sound on the Monday and it will be revisited for the rest of that week, but also in future weeks as well. They drip feed words in to make sure that we're not forgetting that knowledge. So lots of opportunities for them to practice and remember the information. And gradually over year 1, your child will learn the entire alphabetic code. And by the end of year 1, we hope that they've done that, and then that's why we then focus on, we still continue with the alphabetic code, but with that real focus on the spelling and spelling patterns, which they find a bit more tricky when they're actually writing the words. They're very good in the reading, you've got the context all around it, but it's the writing them. So I said about how you pronounce the phase 5 sounds, there's a video, but there's also other ones for all the other sounds as well. So if you're ever not sure how to say a sound, and some of them are very different to what you'd think. So don't be, shy of going on there. Also, it's really important that we don't add sounds at the end of words, for example, t, because particularly when the children are starting to write, they start adding in all these extra sounds that actually aren't there. So it's really important that we do pronounce and enunciate the sound really carefully. So it wouldn't be t, it'd be t. It's a slight difference, but it really does help them when they're then writing. So again, you can access those videos either from this or our website or the Little Wandle website. There they are again. We do send out homework. You don't have to complete this, but it just lets you know there's some activities there. You can see the sounds that they've worked on. There's some words there. There's some tricky words there. So it's just for information. We don't expect to have it back. It's more for you, and it might be one week you don't have the opportunity. You can do some in the future weeks, or just when you have a spare 5 minutes, because again, it's that repetition and that practice and revisiting things that are really key to the information remaining in your child's long-term memory. So reading and spelling. I appreciate I'm speaking at a very fast pace, so hopefully I'm not going too fast and you're keeping up with me. I will be sharing all these slides as well, and like I say, the video will be available on our website. So spelling, I've mentioned spelling. Your child will still be doing spelling as part of their phonics session. They practice words every day linked to the phonemes and the graphemes that they're learning. They start practicing dictated sentences using words that they have been a focus that day, and we refer to the handwriting. So in foundation stage, when they're first learning the basic code, we really unpick each individual letter and we do our handwriting alongside the phonics. As they move into year 1, obviously we're dealing more with words and digraphs and trigraphs, so it all becomes part of that as well, and then we do additional handwriting on top of that. But we do the spellings as well, because it's really important to start building that up as soon as possible. So when you're spelling, These are some tips that you can do. Say the word, segment the word, the sounds, the phonemes, count the sounds, and then write them down. And I often get the children to do it out loud whilst they're writing, because that can really help them. For some children, if that's distracting, they can do it in their head. We sometimes, for different children, have different strategies where we have sound mats, but that's just a good technique that you can do if they're writing cards or lists for you. If you're doing any writing, I know this is about reading and phonics, but they all go hand in hand. Try and make it purposeful, because then it has more meaning for the children and they want to do it. Because that can be another thing, that they love reading and they love doing phonics. Writing can be the bit that they find a bit more tricky. But this is a really good tool. All of this phonics and this spelling practice will really help them then when they do writing. So how do we teach reading? You all know all of this, so this is just a bit of reminding you what we do. It remains exactly the same from foundation stage. We have 3 reading practice sessions a week, which are timetabled in Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Sometimes changes depending on stuff. It shouldn't change now. It's taught, that small group session is taught by a trained teacher or teaching assistant. They've all been through hours of training and they're all experts at it. It's taught in small groups. They do get to hear the children read individually. That's part of the session. They're not, but they're all reading independently, and they sort of tune in to different children throughout. So they do hear them individually, so they can check in and make sure that they're managing and they're not getting stuck in any misconceptions. The books that are chosen are matched to your children's level, their phonics level, and that it's used 3 times, and then it comes home to you to celebrate their success, and I'll come on to that. So that's how we teach it in school, as well as we do loads of reading. We've got books everywhere, as you know. We use stories and books, whether that's in class, out of class. We've got a rich learning environment in terms of reading, and it, you know, we make sure that books are really important. We end the day with story time, so the children see that reading is, you know, something we really value and is really important to them. So like I said, we assess the children every 6 weeks, and this is what we use to inform the book level that they're on. So that reading practice book should be really matched to their phonics ability. If you're ever concerned though, or ever worried, just speak to the class teacher, because maybe that day they were having a bad day when we did the assessment, or they didn't sleep well. You know, these things happen. So if you're ever not sure, just please do ask. We're more than happy to work with you and redo it, that sort of thing, if you think it's too easy or maybe it's too hard. So having the book at the right level, they should know all the sounds and the tricky words in the book by the time it comes home. They might be able to silently blend any ones that they come across in their head. They should only really stop and sound out about 5% of the words. If they're doing any more than that, it's probably a bit tricky for them. So they should be able to read predominantly 95% of the book without you having to help them, just listening to them and enjoying hearing them read. Our 3 reading sessions over the course of the week have a different focus. So the first one is so it's the first time they've seen that book. So we look at the sounds that they may come across, any particular word, any new vocabulary. We do a bit of decoding with them of any of the tricky words prior to reading it, because we want your child to feel real success when they're reading, because that's what then will make that, them enjoy reading and want to read. When it becomes a real chore and it's really tricky, that's when they disengage with it, and that's what we don't want. So we practice all the skills with them first, and you'll see in the books it goes through all these 3 stages in a bit more detail. So when you have a look at their book, in the front cover and back cover, it explains these 3 sessions. So yes, session 1's all about decoding. What new words have we got? Is there any new vocabulary? We start to talk about new vocabulary, and you'll see more of that in year 1 than in their foundation stage books, and any tricky words. The second session, so then we read the book. The second session, we revisit that a little bit, But then we might pick out some pages and do some prosody. That's where you're looking at your expression. And again, now the books have more words in them, it is easier to do the prosody than it was when they initially started reading and there was only a few words on a page. And the reason for doing the expression and intonation is because it adds meaning to the reading. And again, we read the book. And then the third session, again, we revisit the decoding if we needed to, remind them about the new vocabulary or tricky word, but then we really focus on comprehension. And you'll see when you look at the front and back covers, you'll see the questions we're asking. So we're asking them to do some inference, some retrieval of information, how, you know, are there any other words that could be used instead of the word that the authors use? All those sorts of things. And we do that every single week. There's a real prescriptive way that we do it and we follow. And that's nice for the children because they like routine. They like to know what's coming. They like to know the structure. It makes them feel more comfortable. And we do lots of celebrating their success. So I've mentioned this before. So we read 3 times in school with an adult. It comes home on a Thursday. If you can bring it, make sure it comes back on Monday. They only need to read it once with you, so you can just see how fantastic they are at reading. It's pretty matched. It should be an enjoyable experience. There'll be a nice mixture of books that come home from fiction, non-fiction. You'll see that they'll move through them as assessments are made. But if you ever have any concerns, obviously, like I said earlier, speak to the class teacher. Here's some examples of the books, so you can see the fiction, non-fiction, and they are lovely books. And we're adding to it all the time with new titles that come out and growing our book collection. So the reading practice book is really important because it's matched to your child's level, but we also know that children want to read more, they love reading, so we give them other opportunities to read as well. So we call these their sharing books. And that's their home readers, which I'll hold one up, has a clear sticker on it saying home reader. And these are colour banded. So prior to our Little Wonder Scheme, all of our books were colour banded. And you work your way through the colours. Now, that's loosely matched to their phonics level, but there may be sounds or there might be tricky words in the book that they haven't come across or new vocabulary that they might not be able to tackle without your support. So you may need to help them a little bit. You shouldn't need to help them an awful lot, but you just be aware there might be words in there that may be unfamiliar to them because they haven't covered that sound yet. But they might, so that's why we call it a sharing book. But it gives, they get to choose within that colour band, the books, they have a little bit of choice, which is nice for them because they don't get to choose their reading practice book. We choose that for them, and it gives them a bit of breadth of reading, different they're different types of books, so different reading material to develop their vocabulary, interests, and like I say, to give them a bit of choice. And then on top of that, we have their library book, which they change every week. We have a lovely selection in our library of fiction, non-fiction, and our take-home packs now with little resources in to help engage with the story. And again, if they choose one of our non-fiction books, they're probably going to need you to read it for them, but they might be able to read the odd word. If they choose a nice simple picture book later in the year, they definitely might be able to read it themselves, but it will just vary. But that is a sharing book. We do not expect them to be able to read that independently, just the reading practice book. And again, that's to develop their personal interests, their vocabulary, and just to give them more reading opportunities. And again, with the library book, it's their choice. They have a little bit of, they like having a choice. They you know, they've chosen that book for a reason. So it means they want to read it. So how often? Always get asked this. And in an ideal world, I'll say every day, but I am a working parent. I've got 2 kids, so I know exactly what it's like with work-life balance, with clubs. So if you can read every night, then fantastic, do it. And if they love it, do it. But we say at least 3 times a week because they need that regular repetition of reading. They need to see that it is important. And I've just had a child start secondary school, and it's reading is still really important, and they ask the children to read start of every lesson and every day at home, ideally. But I'm a realist, and I think if you can try and aim for 3 times a week as a minimum, and then if you do 4 times 1 week or 5 times, fantastic, all the better. But yeah, if you can try for a minimum of 3, that will really help them make progress, and it will give them opportunities. We do have volunteer readers that come in school that provide extra reading opportunities. We've only got a couple now, so if anyone has any spare time, we're always looking for volunteers, but that would give your child opportunities to read extra if we get more volunteers. But yeah, and they don't have to read, like, if you've read all the home readers or they haven't swapped them that day, then just read what you've got at home, or if you go to the library or they've got a magazine they want to read, that's absolutely fine. Any reading is good reading. And I would really recommend the library. It's a fantastic, we're really lucky actually in Wokingham. We've got that fantastic space. We'll be visiting there again near to World Book Day, but it is a fantastic resource nearby. The home reading diary, that's our communication from home and school. It's more for you to write in than us, because we like to hear how your child's getting on. If you don't get you can always ring us, email us if you need to speak to someone about reading. That's absolutely fine. But if you'd rather write in the book, then that's equally fine as well. It might be particular words or sounds that you're noticing that I find tricky, or you can just write, they enjoyed the book, they read well, if you haven't got time to write anything. But it just lets us know that they have actually read at home, which is really useful for us. Because if they're reading loads at home and we're doing all these things but they're still not making progress, maybe we need to look at something else to support them and help them. And you can add in any other books that you read in there as well. It doesn't just have to be the school books. If you want, like I say, any reading is good reading, and we'd love to see what they're reading. I've covered all these things, but again, I've just popped it in there. It's just a repeat of some of the things I've said previously, but it'll be on the slide for your information. And I feel like I've spoken a lot, and I hope that I've covered everything that you're interested in knowing. But if not, if anyone's got any questions, please do either shout out or pop your hand up. Stop sharing my screen. So this is the awkward silence part, isn't it?
I've got a couple of questions, if that's helpful, to kick off. Hi, I'm Emmy's mum. A couple of questions. Volunteer readers, what time of the day or day of the week is that useful for you?
Day of the week, but afternoons.
Afternoons, okay.
Cool. And if you can only do an hour, that's, or half an hour even, that's absolutely fine. There's a bit of training and paperwork we have to go through, because we have to have lots of checks for safeguarding.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to find out more, but yeah, any day of the week, but afternoons. So the ones that come in at the moment they do 1:30 till 3. But if you can only give us an hour, then we're still grateful for it.
Okay, great, thank you. And then just another, it's more advice really. Emmy's so when you sit down to read her actual reading book with her, she'll say, "I'm reading it in my head, mummy," and she's like pointing to all the words, and I'm like, well, it's not really telling me that you can read the book. So just any advice really, is that a good thing that she's trying to do that, or should I be encouraging her to obviously read it out loud to me, and how to actually do that?
It's a hard one, that, isn't it? Because you don't want to discourage her reading. If you ask her questions, is she reading it?
I haven't tried that, but I will.
Okay, that would be interesting to know. I think they're still quite young to be reading in their head. I think if they were year 3, 4, they do start wanting to read, but it is still good for them to read out loud. So you could strike a compromise, couldn't you? This week, I really want to see how you're getting on. Can you read out loud?
Yeah.
And then maybe the next time, just say, okay, it's fine to read in your head. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah, so, good one. I'm pretty sure she's blagging it that she's not actually reading.
Reading out loud, and she wants to do it. Because it will be it's nice for you as a parent to hear them read.
Yeah, definitely. Okay,
but
that's good advice. Thank you.
A couple of questions.
Thank you.
That's okay, you're welcome. Has anybody got anything else?
I'm Willow's mum here. Just a quick one. So you mentioned sometimes some children get sort of additional support,
Yeah.
sort of one-to-one. If that was to happen, is that something that we would be notified of, or would we be just told if there were some sort of concerns about?
You'll only be told if we feel like it's a concern that's more than just needing a little bit of keep up. If they're just having keep up, it's so fluid, we wouldn't be able to. And it might just be that it's just that one tricky word or that one particular sound that they've struggled with. But if we felt like they were behind in their reading, or that there was something that we were needing to do more with, then we would absolutely tell you. But the general keep up, we just get on and do it, and then and that it keeps them up with the rest of the learning, so we don't need to tell you. It's when they're getting really behind with the learning that we would then speak to you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? If you'd rather email, I always do this, I leave a meeting and then I think, oh, I wish I'd asked that. Please just email in, or if you see me on the gate, you can ask me. Just don't sit and worry about it or think about it. Just ask. Well, brilliant. Thank you for your time this morning. Like I say, I will put the slides and videos on by Friday on the website. And I'm going to stop recording now and let you get on with your day.
Thank you, that's wicked.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.